All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. I have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Been moved and second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Do we have anybody signed in, raise their hand online? Nope, then we'll skip that part, moving right along. Student representative reports. Caitlin?
Okay, so I'm covering sports. Not that much going on because it was winter break, but for basketball, they had a big tournament in Portland and they actually had it like streamed in the commons when we were having school. So that was really cool. And then the girls had a game against Wapato, and then they have a tournament coming up around the 28th to 30th. So good luck to them. And then wrestling had a tournament in Pasco for both girls and boys. And then this weekend they have another one at Hamburg. And I don't know about boys swim.
Okay.
I don't know what.
Well, thank you, Caitlin. Yoshimi?
So I'm covering ASB. We're not doing that much since it's winter break, but I know we're still trying to get senior shirts going. And then that's pretty much it right now. Not much going on.
You have a good Christmas break so far?
Lots of wrestling practice though. I just came from it, so.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
All right. That concludes that. We'll go on to item E as action items, vouchers. Any questions on the vouchers?
I did have one question. It's on the second set to Gear Up, and it was for the girls' basketball team jerseys. And it's coming out of, I don't know if it's coming out of ASB or if there were funds raised from the tournament last summer that was helping. Is there any information on that?
Delise, can you?
I do not, but I can look into that and get back to you.
Okay, thanks.
And that was in ASB, right?
I wasn't sure if it was part of ASB because it's above that is ASB. So I wasn't sure if that was a separate line item or not.
Mm. Any other questions? I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the vouchers. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to 6 through 12 Science Adoption Committee. That would be Deanna. Is she on?
I'm here.
Hello.
Hi, guys. Happy holidays. Yeah, we'll be starting the 6 through 12 science adoption. This is a committee that's prescribed by board policy, and it comes to the board for you guys to approve. It's like a subcommittee of the instructional materials committee.
When do you anticipate starting?
January.
I want to know why we're not looking at K through 12.
So K through 12 has adopted more recently. Science is not adopted for many, many years. The adoptions, again, like we talked about before, are very expensive. And so it also is something that you have to think about, like even if we were doing K through 5, it would be a separate committee.
Why wouldn't they look at all of it at the same time, even if you can't adopt all the curriculum at once?
So earlier in the year, we discussed, well, it's really hard to go through an adoption and say, sorry, but we're not gonna pay for that. So that's one issue. We certainly can look at K through 5 science as well, but we have some curriculums that are well older, I think we should consider first. The secondary social studies, and history really should be next. It's probably 25 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that that probably needs to be done, but, I guess my concern is like, I feel like it should be at least looked at holistically. You know, like whatever we're doing in K-5 should feed into whatever we're gonna adopt in 6-12, so they all mesh, like. I'd like to see a committee kind of looking at the whole system and not just the piece, even if it's the recommendation that says, first we take this 6-12 curriculum and then we follow on later with K-5, or how can we look at what we already have in our elementary schools and leverage that differently?
So we certainly can look at what we already have in our elementary schools. We actually use science kits that we supported through the Kennewick School District. So there's like a 4-kit rotation for each of the grade levels. Those were updated within the last like 7 years. And so, like I said, we certainly could look at K-5, but even if we did it at the same time, we'd probably run those as 2 separate committees, maybe with some meetings coming together with some select members to talk about, because it would be such a huge group. And they're really, even though you want that comprehensive curriculum, which we certainly do, all the curriculum is teaching, it needs to be addressing the standards. So if they're addressing the next gen standards and it is aligned with the next gen standards, just like in ELA, we did adopt 2 different curriculums in the secondary, but they both are well aligned with the standards. So it wouldn't necessarily cause us to like adopt something. There really isn't anything K-12 to adopt anyway that's like the same curriculum. But there are some things that are K-8. There are some things that are 6-12. There's really nothing that's K-12 that's well aligned. So either way, you know, we could do that. We could look at that, and that's something that the secondary is very interested in, and what's happening in the elementary as well. But this is the schedule that we have. If the board would like me to do something different, you just need to let me know. Either way, we need to move forward with 6-12.
Will it be the work of the committee, Deanna, to decide the focus of the science curriculum? Like, are we gonna traditional science, biology, and then how much like coding, robotics would be incorporated, or is that we're looking more at the core curriculum and the standards?
I'm not sure if I heard the whole question. You're a little bit hard to hear, but in the science that we're talking about in this adoption would be more of that traditional strand of science. You might think physical science, biology, chemistry. There's, you know, we have to consider whether we still continue with that kind of strand or we go to an integrated science system, which would, you know, in certain years, they would be doing more than one topic, wouldn't it be physical science and so on. So when you're talking about the robotics, those are more in the CTE strand. That's very prescribed by the state and those frameworks that are written for CTE. So we certainly could consider something we would adopt ourselves, but they do a pretty good job with that in CTE, but it would be separate.
Thank you.
I'm going to add just some thoughts, what I'm hearing from Michelle and Lisa both. I think the big thing that we need to make sure everybody understands is that we are looking at curriculum that match the standards that are required for the state of Washington, or next generation science standards. And those, Michelle, we could get to you and you could see how they, what I call spiral through each of the grades K through up through 12. And then I think what I'm hearing, Michelle, is if this is what we're doing in K-5, is it preparing the students for what they need in 6th grade? Is that a correct statement?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing is we need to make sure, even though we may only have the funding for 6-12, or even if we do have the funding for 6-12, we have to start looking at what curriculums match the standards. But what I'm hearing from Michelle is that we need to make sure we don't have any pockets or gaps in those NGSS standards with what we're doing with our kits K-5.
Yeah, I think I just want to make sure they're ready and have enough too. You know, like I think looking at, for even just consistency in our elementary schools. So like the amount of time being spent in Whit Strand is far less than what kids who come to town are getting in science, right? So, you know, just some consistency in that K-5 instruction in our district.
I definitely agree with that. It's really important that kids are receiving science instruction in the elementary. And I know that the focus is so heavy on, you know, reading, writing, and math when they're in elementary. They are required by the state to teach science every day, which is a new requirement actually as of this year. We did some work this year just to align our elementary schedule. So they were having the same or almost the same instructional time because it was Riverview had a much shorter amount of time than the other two buildings. And that's created some other challenges, but it is important that our students are getting prepared with the science that they need as they go on, you know, all the way from K up to graduation.
Deanna, I think it was been mentioned before, the, is it ARC? Was it ARC, the reading?
Yes.
ELA?
Yeah, that's our
It did
K-8.
mention that a lot of that's been science-based. Is there a way we could get a breakout on what that?
Yeah,
would
so all of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
art curriculum is, all of their units either have a social studies or a science focus. So yeah, I could get you the units for K through 8 that would show you. Of course, it's not, science is the focus, and that's what they use to teach unit, but it's not teaching science. They're not doing, you know, science experiments or activities. Their content is around science, so it's very supportive of science and social studies, but we still have to, it's not counting for our science.
Okay.
But I can certainly get you the units we have K-8.
Because I think, you know, when we started looking, I think you're onto something. When we started looking at the art curriculum a couple years ago, I think, is every school did something different. And it was frustrating because they'd all join up at one school and now it's chaos.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's prudent that we look at making sure our elementaries jive together so that they get equal across the board, so that when they go to the middle school, they're prepared correctly, no matter where they come from.
It's essential that we provide our students with equitable learning experiences. You shouldn't have a more rich science experience or a more rich social studies experience because you got a certain teacher, or a better writing experience or a better math experience because you had a certain teacher. We
No,
have to make sure.
And that's not what I was getting at, so I apologize if that's how it
But
came out.
it's just to add on to what you said, I know what you're saying is that, oh, well, we're doing one thing at Riverview and a different thing at Whit Strand and a different thing at Heights, and that's true. But we also have had issues with, where, you know, people might have I hope you guys are still there.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, because the screen went black. The screen went black there for a minute. But that equitable as far as the offerings that our teachers are giving and the curriculum that they're being offered in K-12. You're back.
Yep. So I think it might be worth looking and exploring and seeing what they have, even if it's a separate committee.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for having a committee to look at K-12. I just don't want to lose sight of everyone else and how it all fits in the whole system.
But it would be,
Totally agree.
so it'd be two separate though. You'd have 6-12, right? That's what we're doing, is 6-12
Yes.
The 6-12.
and K-5. Right, because
Yeah, the curriculums are, I mean, you could have a K-12 committee, but we would still be meetings, like it's almost like you could have some meetings, but you have to meet separately because of the way the curriculums are laid. Everything is a little bit different in the way that the time, what they're doing. There are, like I said, there are some that are common, like K-8 or 6-12. But we also, we need to make sure we have a commitment to fund things as well. And I know right now with the budget, that's something, this science adoption for the secondary, we're looking at this year and probably next year to do some piloting. So it's a ways away before we actually adopt.
And then, you know, maybe one thing that we would get out of starting K-5 now is we would have a budget number by that time that we, you know, a year or two down the line. Would that be accurate or no?
Yeah, we could get that. We could get a kind of an estimate of the cost, and we would need that anyway for budgeting, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious too, like, aside from getting an all new curriculum, is there some low hanging fruit? You know, like what tools do we already have that maybe we could utilize more of? Or is there more hands-on learning that we could easily access without impacting the budget, or field trips, or like, you know, what is the stuff that we can do without spending a bunch of money? I feel like you get a committee together, they could figure out some things.
I agree.
Do we have a schedule in general, like a replacement schedule for all the curriculums, K through 12 in the district? I think that would be
We
helpful.
do, we
Okay.
do. I brought that to the board before, but probably not for a while. It also has gotten a little upended in the last few years, and so things have gotten extended, but yes, we do.
If you could send.
I can bring that to
Oh, thanks.
a board meeting in January. Mhm.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Deanna?
I have this burning question. It probably relates. Deanna, you keep talking about the cost of curriculum, and I know we've talked about like when we looked at the vouchers, the books being so expensive. And I'm
Mhm.
just curious, like, now that everyone has a laptop, are we not moving more towards like digital sources of books and whatnot? It seems like that would be cheaper. I don't know. I haven't priced it.
It is, so Michelle, it is in its own way, but the total cost is not much different. So they charge us a license fee per book that the book is then online.
The other thing to consider is we still have students that do not have internet access out in some of our areas. And so there's some of that is an issue as well. If it's something that's downloadable, that they could download at school, but a lot of the teachers are already using, and even like ELA, we have the books that they can have in their hand. They do have online access as well.
I'm
So,
also
like,
like
we
thinking
do-
about their poor backs lugging around 100 pounds in their
They,
backpacks.
yeah, and we may not, in the, so OER, the Open Educational Resources, they're developing some really strong core units. We have some teachers that actually have been well, Jason Crook has been part of the kind of development and some of the piloting of those for physics. And there isn't a book. It is online.
Yeah.
So that's very possible, but you still have, I mean, there's still a cost to it. So it's sometimes it is 6 of one and half dozen of the other, but it really just depends. Even though OER is free, it's not really free. There are things we would buy and some kids need paper materials in their hands. So, but there's definitely possibilities for sure.
When we buy books, do we generally just buy from the same source or do we shop?
Sometimes there is only one source. So depending on the curriculum, if they're the sole source, they're the sole source. So like for ARC, they're the sole source. So we have to get what's called a sole source letter from them because it's the only place we can buy it. Whereas our materials, like our math materials at the middle school, there's a couple different suppliers of the same materials. And so you can do some price shopping, but usually it's one place.
An example of that, Frank, is when we buy it, we get kind of like anything, we get a bulk rate, we buy it. Then often when we do replacements in year 2, 3, 4, then we can shop everything from Amazon to Northwest depository or textbook depository or something like that for replacement items once the book is no longer brand new.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Well, I would entertain a motion if there is one.
I make a motion to approve the 6 through 12 Science Adoption Committee.
I second it.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Deanna.
Absolutely.
Moving on to Winter Ball 2024 consultant service agreements. Any questions?
I have some questions. I like that we're using the NPR and using a school facility. Is there a cleanup fee or a janitor fee to use the NPR?
The kids
There-
are looking into that. Athena, co-advisor for Mustang Way. The kids are looking into all of that with Alice Perkins and getting all of those costs and everything.
And that would come out of your club account? Okay. And then I did notice, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Elisa. It's kind of hard to tell when to speak up. I don't want to talk over you. Then if there was something that was major to be done, as long as it's within our normal work week, there would be no excessive extra costs. We would just have them follow up and clean up on Monday or Tuesday thereafter if there was anything major that needed, like bathrooms or something needed to be done.
Please always talk over me. Otherwise, may not ever happen. I did notice that 2 of the contracts were dated December the 7th and one was dated November the 5th. And I would just ask that going forward, we get those contracts earlier, please.
Heard you loud and clear.
Thank you. Otherwise, have a great time.
Any other questions?
And the kids generally do all the cleanup afterwards. It just might be, like Kim said, the bathrooms or whatever.
Thank you. We'll entertain a motion. When is the Winter Ball? Before
The
January
13th.
13th. Okay, thank you.
I motion,
2,000 sporting events.
Did it plan that way or?
Yes.
Nice.
Good
Do you
planning.
mean home events?
There are no sporting events that weekend.
I have
We
a
have
girls wrestling meet
Yeah, boys and boys
on January 13th.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
boys and girls wrestling, but it's okay. It's okay. I've never been to a winter ball, so and I don't plan on it. So
Every document we looked at, there was nothing planned. so.
Okay.
Let's sidetrack. Did I get a motion? Did I hear one?
it was coming. I motion to accept the Winter Ball 2024 action item.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That concludes auction items. Moving on to consent items 1 through 3. Any questions? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve consent items 1 through 3.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve consent items 1 through 3. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That concludes that. Moving on to reports. Delise, you're up if you're there still.
I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, so just a couple things on enrollment. The first thing is that I realize that the numbers in the graph don't match the numbers in the table, and I apologize. The virtual and open doors students were not separated in the graph, but they are separated in the table. So I'll get that fixed. And the second thing is, unfortunately, we are down 3 this month, but still going steady above budget.
Well, that's good news. Any questions for Delise?
Do we know what the 3 we lost or why?
It's just a mixture of things. So if you look on the very last page, it'll show you the enrollments and withdrawals in each building.
I will tell you that, Michelle, I did a little research on this. The big thing that you'll see here is the 11 out of district. We had 3 families move, which was 11 students. And they are confirmed out of district. So that was a big hit for us. Otherwise, our enrollment would be up because you notice the new to district is 13.
Any other questions for Delise?
But with the graduation alliance line, confusing to me what exactly that means. Like you had 2 students enroll in graduation alliance and 4 withdraw from that. Is that what I'm reading?
Yes, so that's another piece there. So let's use an example. Student X was enrolled in Graduation Alliance. They were put in 2 classes and they do not do very well. It's called making adequate progress. Let's say they were supposed to do, I don't know, I'm going to use 3 chapters in the month of November and they only did 1. Graduation Alliance removes them and puts them on probation and takes them out and drops them from the program. So we don't really have any control over that because the ALE laws in the state of Washington say you have to be on for so much time on your computer. You have to make progress. It's called make adequate progress. And so they may come back next month. You may see enrollment 4 and withdrawals 1 because those students may come back and do what they were supposed to do. It's a very fluid movement between in and out in Graduation Alliance.
And then if they're removed from the program, what do they do?
So then they normally meet with a counselor and their parents through Graduation Alliance. Mr. Funk gets involved and then we sit down with them and make a plan on how to get them back into Graduation Alliance. The state just has really certain rules that we can't count their head count or collect money for them if they're not making adequate progress. So there's a full checkbox system that David and the high school system runs through to pull them back in. But that's the reason the count fluctuates all the time with them.
Do you ever see them come back into like in-person school?
Very seldom. I'm not saying they don't, but very seldom.
My sister's in Graduation Alliance, and what do you think the leading causes of them going to Graduation Alliance? Like, did you hear me?
Yoshimi, were you asking Kim?
Yeah, or one of you, if anyone who knows the answer.
I didn't. So there's lots of reasons. Attendance, social emotional well-being, wanting to be doing school online. Sometimes our strong academic students they just want to go to school, do their schoolwork and be done. The ones that are coming in and out and fluctuating in and out, many have life barriers. Some of our students are not homeless like you think of the definition when you say homeless, but they may be couch surfing, they may be working, they may be self-sufficient. They're called unaccompanied youth. So they're working and trying to take care of themselves while going to school. Deanna, do you have other ideas? Those are mostly them.
I know just in talk, oftentimes when Mr. Funk, he'll call me, sometimes about enrolling students. Honestly, oftentimes, especially if it's during the school year, it's mental health. They're struggling to come to school. They're, if they don't go online, they're not gonna make any progress.
Anything else for delete? Thank you. Moving on, Deanna, you're up again.
All right, I'll be quick. Just compliments to our music instructors that we had some great holiday concerts that happened, lots of families and staff coming to watch. And then at our next meeting in person, I'll bring a thank you note for you guys to sign. Tom Denschel Ford have been great partners with us for several years and have held a holiday toy drive for our students. We were able to go that last Friday before break and pick up a whole bunch of toys that we distributed to the K-8 counselors, and they had already connected with families, so parents can come in and like secretly get the toys and give them as gifts if they're not able to provide those for the students. And there were lots. We filled the bus up with toys. So thanks to Tom Denschel, like I said, they've done that for us at least 3 years, maybe more. I can't remember, but I'll bring a thank you note so you all can sign it for them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Kim.
I don't really have anything. We had our city session. I think it was great. I think we're moving in some great ways as far as financially. I'm excited to see where the enrollment staying above what happens in January for those new on the school board. Your initial monies are based on what you plan in your budget for enrollment. And then think about January being like where they balance you out. And so, excuse me, they will make us whole per se, and then our numbers will be real numbers for every month they're on. And I'm really excited to see what that does to our cash flow situation. Busy in January. We're gonna have to see what happens. We're kind of having that sidebar before. Weather has been good to schools, but not necessarily good to our farming friends. So we'll see what happens. So I'll say that's all for tonight before I cough your ear off.
Great.
More vitamin C.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, moving on to board member reports. Michelle?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Frank?
A couple weeks ago, I was able to attend my first Thrive meeting and listened to Rachel Shaw gave a presentation, and it was very good. I mean, just doing some really good things, just being able to know how to identify some of these things that are happening, kids getting sucked in, or just even the language that for paraphernalia and things. It was really, really good. And I do think there's going to be, it's good to see that the school is working with them to make, for awareness, it's a real and serious issue.
Thank you. Yep. Lisa?
I have no report for this evening.
And I will ditto that, so we can get out of here and get home. So with that, we have our next regular board meeting will be January 10th, right here at the Crossherd Library Workroom at 6 p.m. And with that, you all have a safe and happy new year. Meeting's adjourned. Take care, Kim.
Feel better, Kim.